The city streets were quiet that evening, with only the soft echoes of footsteps and distant car horns breaking the stillness. Among the shadows, a little girl sat on the curb, tears rolling down her cheeks. Around her neck hung a gold necklace, familiar, striking, impossible to ignore. He froze. His heart stopped. That necklace? He hadn't seen it in years. It had vanished, lost to the chaos of a life that had always demanded everything. And now it was there, worn by this child, so small, so fragile, clutching it like a treasure she could never let go of. Questions swirled in his mind, gripping him with a force he couldn't shake. Who was she? How had she come into possession of something that belonged only to him? And more importantly, why her? Every instinct told him to approach, but caution warred with curiosity. As he stepped closer, the girl's eyes lifted, wide and wary, yet something in her gaze struck him. A familiarity he couldn't place, a connection he didn't understand. The world around him seemed to blur, the hum of the city fading until all he could see was her, and the necklace that carried so many memories. Before he could speak, the girl whispered something that stopped him cold. The words were simple, almost childlike, yet they held a weight that made his chest tighten. "Don't touch it. It's my daddy's." Time froze. Questions, confusion, and a surge of emotions collided inside him. How could this be possible? And in that moment, he realized that his life, and the life of this little girl, was about to change forever. If you're new here, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more gripping millionaire and billionaire stories, and drop a comment below letting us know which country you're watching from. What he did next would leave everyone stunned. But first, who was this child, and why did she have his necklace? Isabella's morning began like any other, in a small, worn room she shared with her best friend, Esther. The sunlight barely made it through the thin curtains, casting soft lines across the peeling walls. Despite the modest surroundings, Isabella carried herself with a quiet dignity. She moved with purpose, even if the day ahead promised nothing more than struggle. Her stomach growled as she prepared the meager breakfast they could afford. A few slices of bread and a little butter. Some mornings there wasn't even enough for that. Work at the local cafe barely covered the rent, let alone the other necessities she and Esther needed. But Isabella never complained. She had learned early that life demanded endurance, patience, and a will to keep moving forward, no matter how unfair it seemed. Every day was a test. She carried trays across crowded tables, wiped counters with worn cloths, and forced a smile for customers who barely noticed her existence. The exhaustion never seemed to end. Some nights she returned to their small room with aching feet and empty pockets, lying awake on the thin mattress, wondering how she would make it through the next day. Yet even in the hardest moments, her spirit refused to break. Isabella had dreams, big ones. She imagined a life where her efforts would pay off, where she could step out of the shadow of struggle and into a world of stability and opportunity. She pictured herself walking confidently into places that now seemed unreachable, earning respect, and finally having enough to provide not just for herself, but for someone she might one day love and protect. Her hope wasn't naive, it was deliberate. Every small step mattered. Every extra hour at work, every modest saving, every act of kindness, Isabella believed they were all pieces of a future she was determined to build. She would often confide in Esther, who had been by her side through thick and thin. "One day, things will change," she would whisper, gripping her friend's hand. "I just know it." Despite the challenges, Isabella carried a lightness in her heart that was impossible to dim. She noticed details that others overlooked: the beauty of morning sunlight, the laughter of children playing in the street, the way the city seemed to hum with endless possibilities if one could just reach for them. That quiet observation of life kept her grounded and gave her the patience to endure the hardships that came daily. Isabella's kindness was another defining feature. She never turned away someone in need, sharing even the smallest morsel when she could, offering words of encouragement to strangers or friends who were struggling. Life had not been easy, but she understood the value of hope and generosity, the small acts that made the world bearable. And so she woke each day determined to keep moving, to keep striving, to keep believing that her story would not end in this small, crowded room. Somewhere beyond the city streets, And beyond the struggles, a life of opportunity awaited. A life that would test her courage, challenge her strength, and eventually connect her with people she had never expected to meet. People whose lives would intertwine with hers in ways that would change everything. That morning, Isabella woke with a mixture of excitement and nerves. Today wasn't like the others. Today she had an interview at a local hotel, a place known for treating its staff well and offering opportunities for advancement. She had been preparing for this moment for weeks, practicing her responses, smoothing the wrinkles from her simple dress, and rehearsing a smile that could hide the worry that never left her eyes. Esther stood by her side, steady as always, her hand warm on Isabella's shoulder. "You've got this," she said softly, her voice firm yet comforting. "I've seen how hard you work. This is your chance, Isabella. Go and show them who you are." Isabella took a deep breath, letting her friend's encouragement sink in. For a moment, all her fears, the endless bills, the long hours, the uncertainty of life, faded. She nodded, determination shining in her eyes. The walk to the hotel felt longer than usual. Every step echoed in her chest like a drum, reminding her of the stakes. She passed streets she had known all her life, small shops and familiar faces, yet today it all seemed distant. Her focus was entirely on the door ahead, the threshold to a new beginning. Inside, the hotel lobby was bustling, a contrast to the quiet of her room that morning. She approached the receptionist, heart pounding. Soon she was sitting across from the manager, answering questions that tested her knowledge, her patience, and her composure. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady. She spoke honestly about her experience, her dedication, and her willingness to do whatever it took to succeed. Minutes felt like hours, and just as doubt began to creep in, the manager leaned back in his chair, studying her carefully. Then a smile broke across his face. "Congratulations," he said warmly. "You got the job." Relief crashed over Isabella like a wave. She could hardly believe it. Her heart raced, tears pricking the corners of her eyes. After months of struggle, disappointment, and endless nights of worry, this was a small victory, a sign that her life could finally begin to shift. When she returned home, Esther enveloped her in a tight hug, her own eyes glistening with pride. "I knew you could do it," she whispered. They celebrated quietly in their small room, sharing laughter and tears, savoring the rare moment when joy replaced uncertainty. Yet beneath the happiness, Isabella could still feel the weight of her reality. The low wages, the tiny rented room, the endless responsibilities. But for the first time in a long while, hope felt stronger than fear. That evening, as Isabella prepared for bed, she held the promise of the job close to her heart. She imagined a life that could be different, a life where her hard work mattered, where her future was not dictated by struggle alone. Little did she know that this new opportunity would set in motion a series of events that would change everything. Events that would bring her face to face with a man whose wealth and power were as vast as her own life's uncertainties. Kelvin sat alone in the corner of the dimly lit club, the weight of the day pressing down on him like a storm he couldn't escape. At 33, he had achieved what many could only dream of: wealth, influence, and respect that stretched across industries. His tailored suit hugged a physique honed by discipline, his hair perfectly styled, and his sharp features framed by eyes that could command attention in any room. From the outside, he seemed untouchable, a man who had it all. Yet inside, Kelvin was far from the confident figure the world admired. Earlier that day, he had discovered the ultimate betrayal. A business partner he had trusted implicitly had stolen millions from their company and disappeared. The realization hit him like a punch to the chest. Not just the money, but the deceit, the manipulation, the violation of trust. It left him hollow, questioning the judgment he had relied on his entire career. He tried to drown the anger, frustration, and heartbreak in the alcohol on his table. A glass of amber liquid trembled in his hand, his fingers tightening around it with a force that betrayed his composure. Every sip seemed to blur the edges of reality, yet did nothing to erase the gnawing ache in his chest. The laughter, music, and chatter around him felt distant, muffled, as if he were observing the world from behind a thick glass wall. Kelvin's mind wandered to the life he had built, an empire of deals, contracts, and influence, but it all felt empty tonight. The betrayal had reminded him how fragile everything was, how quickly trust could be shattered, and how isolating success could become. He was admired by many, envied by most, yet completely alone in this moment. Eventually, his men appeared, helping him to his feet and guiding him to a private room in the hotel above the club. Kelvin's steps were heavy, his head spinning from a mix of drink and emotion. He barely registered the world around him, the echoing bass of the club, the glow of neon lights, his focus entirely on the emptiness inside, the gnawing void he couldn't fill with money or status. Little did Kelvin know that his life, carefully structured and meticulously planned, was about to collide with someone entirely unexpected. A young woman, struggling and full of hope, unaware of the twists fate had prepared for her, was about to enter a world he never imagined intersecting with hers. And it all would begin with something as small, as simple, yet as powerful as a single gold necklace. That night, in the haze of alcohol, exhaustion, and heartbreak, Kelvin had no idea that the course of his life was about to be irrevocably altered by a young woman whose struggles mirrored nothing of his own, yet whose presence would awaken a part of him he had long forgotten. After weeks of stress and endless work, Esther decided they deserved a night of celebration. "Let's just enjoy ourselves tonight," she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Isabella hesitated, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing on her, but Esther's excitement was infectious. "Just one night," she insisted. "You've earned it." They dressed carefully in their best outfits. Isabella chose a simple black dress that accentuated her natural beauty, while Esther added a touch of glamour. The city lights reflected off the glass of the club, a world apart from the small room they shared. The bass of music thumped through the floor as laughter and cheers filled the air. For the first time in months, Isabella allowed herself to relax, to feel free, even if only for a few hours. But the celebration soon took an unexpected turn. Earlier, Isabella had taken a strong headache medicine to dull a persistent ache, unaware of its potency. As the night wore on, a creeping dizziness overtook her. Her legs felt weak, her vision blurred, and she stumbled slightly, clutching Esther's hand. I need to sit down," she whispered, voice wavering. Searching for a quiet place to rest, she wandered upstairs, unaware of the hotel rooms above the club. One door stood ajar, dim light spilling into the hallway. Exhaustion pulled her forward, and before she realized it, she had stepped inside. The bed was soft, inviting, and she collapsed onto it, closing her eyes. Sleep claimed her quickly, her body surrendering to weakness and fatigue. Moments later, Kelvin entered the room. The drink in his hand, the pain in his heart, and the exhaustion in his steps blurred his judgment. When he saw Isabella lying there, fragile and vulnerable, he assumed she was someone sent to comfort him. A misperception, born from a night of sorrow and drink. He approached silently, and in the confusion and haze, the boundaries of the moment dissolved. By morning, the world had shifted. Isabella awoke slowly, her head spinning, her heart racing. The room was quiet, the man she had seen the night before gone, but on the pillow beside her lay a gold necklace, gleaming in the morning light. Her eyes widened as she read the engraving, K. Williams. Next to it, a small bundle of money lay neatly folded. Questions raced through her mind, fear and confusion mingling with a strange sense of wonder. She touched the necklace gently, feeling its weight and significance, unsure of what had truly transpired. Her thoughts were interrupted only by the realization of the gravity of her situation. She quickly dressed, careful not to leave a trace of her presence, and left the hotel. Every step back to her small room felt surreal, as if the night had been a dream. But the necklace and money were real, undeniable, and heavy with meaning. Back home, Esther was waiting, worry etched across her face. Isabella could barely speak, tears brimming in her eyes. She clutched the necklace and money, whispering the details in fragmented sentences. Esther's hands held her tightly, grounding her as they tried to piece together what had happened. The night had been unexpected, confusing, and life-altering. But it had left behind a thread, a connection, that neither of them could yet understand. That morning marked the beginning of a chain of events that would intertwine their lives forever, setting Isabella on a path she could never have imagined, with a man whose world was as complicated and lonely as her own. A month passed since that fateful night, but Isabella's life was far from ordinary. She noticed subtle changes at first, a constant weariness that sleep couldn't cure, waves of nausea, and a growing heaviness in her body. Tasks that had once seemed manageable now felt impossible. She found herself sitting more often, holding her stomach with a mixture of curiosity and dread. Esther, ever vigilant, observed her friend closely. "Isabella, you don't look well. Are you sure everything is okay?" she asked gently one evening. Isabella avoided eye contact, her heart racing as unspoken fears built inside her. She tried to ignore it, tried to convince herself that it was just stress or exhaustion, but the unease in her chest refused to be silenced. Finally, the fear became too much to bear. Isabella visited a nearby clinic, her hands trembling as she completed the paperwork. She sat in the sterile waiting room, the faint hum of fluorescent lights filling the silence, and tried to steady her racing thoughts. When the nurse called her name, Isabella followed silently, her mind spinning with questions she wasn't sure she wanted answered. The moment of truth arrived swiftly. The nurse smiled gently, a soft yet certain expression. "Congratulations," she said. "You are 1 month pregnant." The word struck Isabella like a lightning bolt. Her breath caught, and she froze in disbelief. "Pregnant?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Tears welled in her eyes as the reality sank in. She returned home slowly, each step heavier than the last. The small room felt both familiar and suffocating, the weight of her circumstances pressing down. Once inside, she sank to the floor, covering her face with her hands as sobs shook her body. Fear, confusion, and helplessness collided. She had no partner, no family to rely on, and barely enough to support herself. How would she care for a child? How could she navigate the challenges ahead alone? Esther rushed to her side, her eyes wide with concern. "Isabella, what's wrong? Please tell me." Through trembling hands, Isabella revealed the truth, recounting the night at the club, the confusion, and the gold necklace engraved with K. Williams, along with the money she had found. The necklace seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 questions, and the uncertainty of the child's father loomed over them both. Esther's expression softened, but her voice was firm. "We can't change the past," she said, holding Isabella tightly, "but we can find answers. Maybe someone remembers that night. Maybe there's a way to figure out who he is. Don't give up, Isabella. You're stronger than you realize, and you won't face this alone." For the first time since learning the news, Isabella felt a flicker of hope amid the fear. She placed her hand gently on her stomach, feeling the tiny life growing within her. "I will protect this child," she whispered, her voice trembling but determined. "I will find a way, no matter what it takes. I may not know his name, but I will make sure my baby has a chance at life, at love, at everything I couldn't give myself." That night, Isabella and Esther sat together, silently planning, imagining, and hoping. The necklace, once a simple piece of jewelry, had become a symbol of mystery, responsibility, and the connection between two worlds that had yet to collide. Unbeknownst to them, the path they were about to embark on would test courage, reveal hidden truths, and ultimately change lives forever. Determined to find answers, Isabella and Esther returned to the club the following day. The music was absent now, replaced by the quiet hum of cleaning staff and distant city noise. They approached the manager first, hearts pounding, hope clinging to every word. "My friend, she was here about a month ago," Esther began carefully. "Something happened. She needs help. Did anyone see a man wearing a necklace, gold, with the name K. Williams on it?" The manager's brow furrowed, his voice polite but distant. "I see a lot of people every night. I'm sorry, but I can't remember anyone like that." One by one, they asked the staff, cleaners, bartenders, receptionists, but each encounter ended the same way. Vague gestures, unsure eyes, no recollection. The necklace sparked no recognition. Their hopes, once fragile but present, were slowly slipping through their fingers. Isabella's heart sank with every unanswered question. She clutched the gold necklace in her hand, the only tangible connection to the man who had unknowingly altered her life. Tears threatened to spill, but she wiped them away, telling herself there was no time for despair. Her unborn child depended on her strength, and she could not falter. Returning home, the weight of reality pressed harder than ever. The small rented room felt colder, emptier, as Isabella stared at the necklace lying beside her. She whispered promises to her baby, a vow to survive, to protect, and to give this child a life worth living, no matter the cost. "I don't know your father," she said softly, placing the necklace around her hands. "But I will do everything for you. You will never go hungry. I will fight for you, always." With renewed determination, Isabella threw herself into her work, despite the growing exhaustion and physical challenges. Each day at the hotel tested her: long hours, constant demands, and the ever-present fatigue from her pregnancy. Yet she persisted, fueled by the thought of her child and the vision of a life that could be different. The contrast between her vulnerability and her resilience became stark. On the outside, she was a young woman struggling to survive, her life filled with uncertainty and hardship. On the inside, a fire burned, a relentless drive to rise above the circumstances, to carve a path where none seemed possible. Each small victory, every tip saved, every compliment on her work became a brick in the foundation she was quietly building for her child's future. Though the search for the father had failed, and though the world seemed indifferent to her struggles, Isabella refused to surrender. In her heart, she carried a quiet but unwavering hope that one day the missing piece of her story, the man tied to the necklace, would reveal himself. Until then, she would endure, she would fight, and she would rise. In the quiet of his expansive mansion, Kelvin moved through his morning routine with precision. The sunlight streamed through tall windows, highlighting the gleam of polished floors and luxurious furnishings, yet something felt off. His eyes scanned the room. Landing on his dressing table, a frown creased his forehead. "Where is it?" he muttered, voice low. The gold necklace engraved with K. Williams was gone. He opened drawers, lifted cushions, even checked under his bed, but it was nowhere to be found. His maid, Mary, appeared promptly, concern written across her face. "Sir, is something wrong?" she asked. "My necklace, the one I've had for years. I can't find it anywhere," Kelvin replied, frustration and confusion threading his tone. Mary shook her head gently. "I didn't see it while cleaning, sir. Perhaps it fell somewhere else." Kelvin waved his hand dismissively, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "No, it's fine. I'll find it later." Yet the missing necklace was more than a minor inconvenience. It was a piece of his past he had unknowingly let slip away. It had left his life, traveling unknown paths, now resting with someone else entirely, someone tied to a child he would never have imagined. As Kelvin carried on with his day, attending meetings, reviewing business plans, and responding to calls, he remained oblivious to the consequences of that one lost item. He had no idea that the necklace had become the anchor of a story unfolding in a modest room across the city, a story involving a young woman who had endured hardship, a baby growing in her womb, and a future that was quietly entwining with his own life. The gap between his polished, controlled world and the life Isabella was forging remained vast, yet the threads of fate had already begun to pull them together. That missing necklace, a small but powerful symbol, would soon bridge the two worlds, setting the stage for an encounter that neither could ignore. In Kelvin's mind, it was just a lost possession. But in reality, it was a silent witness to lives transformed, a connection he had no clue existed, and a secret that would soon demand recognition. 5 years had passed since that fateful night, and life had changed, but not always in the ways Isabella had imagined. Now 29, she had grown stronger, wiser, and more determined. The hardships of her early 20s had left marks, scars visible only in fleeting moments of exhaustion or quiet reflection, but they had also forged a resilience that defined her every action. She worked long hours in a modest but busy restaurant across the city. The pay was small, the hours grueling, yet every coin earned was a brick in the foundation she was building for her daughter. She scrubbed dishes, wiped counters, and served customers with a polite smile that concealed the weight of her responsibilities. Her body ached more often now, the fatigue of single motherhood and constant labor settling into her bones, but she never complained. She had a purpose. Her daughter, Vera. Vera, now 4 years old, was a bright and beautiful child. Her eyes held a spark of curiosity, her laughter could light up a room, and her smile carried the innocence of a world untouched by worry. Isabella watched her grow each day, marveling at the little person she had brought into the world against impossible odds. Their bond was unbreakable, a quiet strength that carried them through the struggles that life continued to throw their way. Yet, despite the love and care surrounding her, Vera could not help but notice what she didn't have: a father. One quiet evening, she turned to Isabella with wide, questioning eyes. "Mommy, where is my daddy?" she asked softly, her small fingers fidgeting with the doll. The question cut through Isabella's heart like a cold wind. She knelt beside Vera, gently holding her daughter close, her voice trembling but firm. "Sweetheart, I don't know," Isabella whispered, placing the shiny gold necklace with K. Williams around Vera's neck. "This necklace belonged to your daddy. I don't know where he is, but this will always remind you of him." Vera's eyes lit up, a mixture of wonder and comfort. "Really? This is my daddy's necklace?" "Yes, my baby," Isabella replied, brushing a strand of hair from Vera's face. "It's the only thing he left behind for you. Keep it safe." That night, as Vera drifted to sleep, clutching the necklace tightly, Isabella sat quietly, her thoughts heavy but resolute. She had faced betrayal, loss, and uncertainty, yet she had never abandoned hope. Her life had not been easy, but through her unwavering love for Vera, she had found a purpose stronger than fear or hardship. In a small room in the city, mother and daughter slept side by side, their bond a fortress against the world. A world that had yet to reveal the secrets of the past, the missing father, and the story that was quietly waiting to converge with their lives. One quiet afternoon, Vera was playing with her dolls on the small carpet of their modest room. Her tiny hands fumbled over a shiny object hidden under a pillow. She gasped softly as her fingers brushed against the gold chain. Her eyes widened. "Mommy, look! Look what I found!" she exclaimed, holding up the necklace that gleamed in the sunlight streaming through the window. Isabella looked up from the dishes she had been washing. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw the familiar gold, the letters K. Williams etched into it. She approached Vera carefully, kneeling beside her daughter. "That necklace," she whispered, a lump forming in her throat. Vera turned the necklace in her hands, her little face filled with awe. "Is this my daddy's necklace?" she asked, her voice soft, almost reverent. Isabella gently took Vera's small hands in hers, holding the necklace between them. "Yes, baby," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "This belonged to your daddy. I don't know where he is or who he is exactly, but this is a piece of him that is yours to keep." Vera's eyes sparkled as she clasped the necklace around her neck. "I have a daddy," she said, her voice full of innocent joy. She twirled around, careful not to let it slip from her tiny shoulders. Isabella smiled through the tears that welled in her eyes. She pulled Vera close, wrapping her arms around her daughter in a tight embrace. "Yes, my love," she whispered, pressing her forehead to Vera's. "You have a daddy. And you also have me, and that's enough for us to face anything that comes our way." Vera hugged her back fiercely, feeling the warmth of her mother's love surround her. The gold necklace wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of hope, a connection to the past, and a promise of resilience. Isabella wanted Vera to understand that even when life felt uncertain, they had each other, and that was their strength. "Mommy," Vera asked softly, "will I ever meet him?" Isabella paused, taking a deep breath. "One day, maybe," she said gently, "but no matter what happens, we will be strong. We will love, we will hope, and we will never give up." This necklace, it's a reminder that life can surprise us and that sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest meaning. Vera nodded seriously, understanding more than her young age should allow. She touched the necklace gently, her tiny fingers tracing the letters, feeling a connection to a father she had never met, yet already cherished. In that quiet room, mother and daughter shared a moment of unspoken understanding. It was a bond forged through love, struggle, and hope. A bond stronger than any obstacle life could place in their path. And the necklace, gleaming between them, was more than gold. It was a bridge to the future, a symbol of resilience, and a promise that no matter what, they would endure together. Kelvin sat on the balcony of his sprawling mansion, the city lights glimmering far below. The crisp evening air did little to cool the heaviness pressing on his chest. His father, Chief Williams, joined him with 2 cups of tea, settling beside him without a word at first. "Son," his father began, breaking the quiet, "you're not getting any younger. When are you planning to settle down and marry?" Kelvin forced a faint smile, swirling the tea in his cup. "Soon, Dad," he replied, though the words felt hollow even to his own ears. Chief Williams studied him carefully. "I've met Trisha's family. She's smart, well-mannered, and beautiful. You two would make a good match." Kelvin nodded, but his mind drifted elsewhere. He was sharp, successful, admired by all who knew him, but a subtle emptiness lingered, one that wealth and power could never fill. "Sometimes," he confessed quietly, "I feel like something is missing." "Missing?" his father echoed, raising an eyebrow. "Yes," Kelvin admitted, staring into the night sky. "I have everything I've worked for, everything people dream about, but there's this strange void inside me. I try to ignore it, but it keeps coming back." Chief Williams sighed, setting down his tea. "Maybe it's because of your late mother. You were very close to her." "Maybe," Kelvin said, his voice trailing off. Yet deep down he felt that this wasn't the full truth. It wasn't grief for his mother. Something or someone was absent, a part of life he couldn't grasp. They spoke briefly about Trisha and marriage, but Kelvin's thoughts kept returning to the unease he could not name. The gold necklace he had lost months ago, something he barely noticed, had already traveled into another life, into a story he was completely unaware of. A child, a daughter, a connection that would one day confront him, waited unknowingly in another part of the city. For now, Kelvin continued his days with charm, success, and elegance, never suspecting that the missing piece of his life was already walking the streets, laughing, playing, and clutching a gold necklace with his name etched into it. And the audience senses it too, the invisible thread of fate slowly tightening, promising that soon, the void he feels will reveal its source, and the life he has built will collide with the one he unknowingly left behind. Meanwhile, in a small, sunlit room across the city, Vera tugged at the shiny gold necklace around her neck. Her tiny fingers traced the engraved letters, K. Williams. Pride and wonder shone in her eyes as she smiled up at her mother. "Mommy, look, this is my daddy's necklace. I'll never take it off," she said, her voice filled with innocent determination. Isabella watched her daughter with a mixture of tenderness and quiet sorrow. She had raised Vera alone for years, nurturing her, protecting her, and teaching her about resilience and hope. That necklace, once lost in the vast world of wealth and power, had found its way into Vera's hands, a connection to a father she had never met, a father who had no idea of the life he had left behind. Far away, Kelvin went about his day with the same meticulous routine he had followed for years. Meetings, calls, and decisions filled his hours, yet the subtle emptiness inside him lingered like an unsolved puzzle. He glanced occasionally at the space on his dresser where the gold necklace once rested. Gone, vanished without explanation, and yet he felt no urgency to search for it. Little did he know that this small, shining chain was no longer lost. It was tied to the life he had unknowingly created. In the quiet, the threads of fate were pulling tighter. The father, oblivious to the daughter, and the daughter, unaware of the father's identity, were moving closer to a collision that would change both of their worlds forever. Every laugh, every step, every moment Vera wore that necklace was a silent reminder of a connection yet to be realized. And while Kelvin continued his days, unaware, the audience can feel the suspense building. The invisible bond between father and daughter is ready to snap into reality. The gold necklace, the symbol of a life-altering past, glimmers with anticipation. Little did he know, his life was about to change forever. Life has a way of weaving paths that seem separate, yet destined to cross in the most unexpected ways. Isabella's journey from struggle to resilience, from fear to hope, reminds us that even in the darkest moments, determination and love can light a path forward. She faced uncertainty, heartbreak, and a future she did not choose. But through courage and persistence, she created a world of care and protection for her daughter, Vera. Kelvin's story, on the other hand, shows us that wealth and success do not guarantee fulfillment. His life was filled with luxury and admiration, yet an invisible emptiness lingered, a missing piece that only fate could reveal. A single gold necklace, a symbol of connection and history, bridged two lives that had been unknowingly intertwined. This story reminds us that small moments, seemingly insignificant at the time, can carry life-altering consequences. One night, one choice, one unexpected encounter, the ripple effect can last years and change lives forever. Fate has a way of placing people exactly where they need to be, and the courage to embrace that moment can define a lifetime. It is also a story about love, not just romantic love, but the deep, unwavering bond between a mother and her child, and the responsibility that comes with shaping a life. Isabella's devotion, her sacrifices, and her protective heart show that true strength is found not in wealth or power, but in the choices we make for the people we care about most. As viewers, we are left with a question that resonates beyond the story itself. What would you do if fate placed a child in front of you, connected to your past in ways you could never imagine? How would you respond to the responsibility, the unexpected opportunity, and the chance to change a life forever? This tale is more than a story of wealth or fortune. It is a story of resilience, love, and the invisible threads that bind us all. It is a reminder that life's intersections can arrive quietly, yet carry the power to transform everything we know. And so the story of Kelvin, Isabella, and little Vera comes to a close. For now, a tale that began with a lost necklace has grown into a story of resilience, love, and the invisible threads of fate connecting lives across years and distance. As we reflect on the twists of this story, one question lingers. What would you have done if fate placed a child in front of you, just as it did for Kelvin? Could you have embraced the responsibility? Could Isabella have handled her challenges differently? Or did her courage and determination shape the path her daughter walks today? Stories like these remind us that life can change in an instant, that a single moment or decision can ripple through the lives of those we may never meet. It is a call to notice, to act, and to care, even when the world seems too heavy to bear. If this story moved you or left you thinking about the power of fate and resilience, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video to show your support, comment below and tell us where you're watching from, and share your thoughts about the choices our characters made. And most importantly, subscribe to Souls and Riches Stories channel for more tales of unexpected fortunes, life-changing decisions, and the emotional journeys of those who walk paths between struggle and success. Stay tuned for the next story, because in every corner of life, there's someone whose world can change in a heartbeat, and whose story might just inspire you to see your own life in a new light. Remember, every story has lessons waiting for you, lessons about courage, love, and the unexpected ways life connects us all.